Hey everyone, JVB here, and today I'm going to show you how to use the new resource adoption feature that was created in Zarf version 26.1. So if you haven't already, go ahead and grab the Zarf source code. We're actually going to use the DOS Games example to kind of show off this feature. You can see here the releases, so go ahead and grab your latest version of Zarf. This started in 26.1, but in any version past 26.1, this will work just fine. If you haven't installed Zarf yet, you can go to zarf.dev and go to install now, and it will show you how to install Zarf with the brew package manager. I've already installed Zarf. We'll get a Kubernetes cluster up and we'll get started. So I'm going to use K3D to set up a local cluster here on my Mac M1. Feel free to use whatever Kubernetes technology you'd like. K3D. Cluster, create, and we're doing resource adoption. And very soon we'll have a Kubernetes cluster up and running. And like I said, we're going to use the DOS Games example here. I'm just going to go into my Zarf source code in a second. All right, so I'm in my source code, doing my Zarf adoption walkthrough. I was actually developing some content for this before recording this video. But let's go ahead and put these manifests. Actually, first we'll get our own namespace for this. So a couple things to note about the resource adoption feature. One, it doesn't work against the default namespace, and it doesn't work against the kube system namespace or any of the Kubernetes system namespaces. Let's apply these manifests. So examples, the DOS games, and the manifests, and we'll add the service, and we'll add the deployment. So now I should have the DOS game service and deployment. Let's check it out in K9s. Oh, I put it in the default namespace. That's all right. We can work around that. Put that in DOS games. So we'll have 2 copies of it, but that won't affect our example. There we go. Now let's look at it again in K9s. Go into our namespaces. Look at the DOS games namespace. And we can see here the game is running. We can actually do a port forward to it to see that it's running. Services. And we want the one in DOS games. And I know this one is listening on 8,000, and we'll just forward it to 8,000 on my machine. And if I open a browser window up, we should be able to navigate right to that at 8,000. DOS game's working. Fire up a DOS game, working just fine. So notice we don't have Zarf yet. So the use case for this is assuming you have an existing cluster with existing workloads. You're going to add Zarf, and then you want Zarf to manage the things that you've already put in here. So let's go ahead and initialize Zarf. That'll take a minute or two to initialize. And we'll see that the DOS games namespace won't be managed by Zarf to begin with. And our Shaka boys, you can see that. And while that's running, let's go ahead and open up VS Code. And I'll open up, we'll talk a little bit about the package and things you'll need as you adopt your own packages when VS Code wants to start up. I'm just checking my script. There it goes. Wow, the thing is just being slow. I already have Zarf open. You see here I've been writing the Zarf documentation for this feature. Let's go ahead into the Zarf examples and into the DOS games example, because we're going to talk about this in a second. So we can see here we already deployed these manifests. This will automatically send this image up, and we'll take a look at that in a moment. So that's up and running. And let's take a look at the, let's take a look at what's happened now. If we look at the namespace, we'll do this in K9s and we'll hop around a little bit. All right, so we're initialized. Let's take a look at the game pod. Should be nothing really interesting here. Everything is normal. You can see here the image is still at Docker Hub because we haven't adopted this yet. And if we look at the namespace, you can see here that Zarf will not work again, will not modify this namespace. So the label here, the Zarf dev agent ignore, that key value pair tells the Zarf agent not to affect anything in this namespace. So this is by design. When Zarf is initialized into a cluster, anything that's existing, doesn't get affected by the agent. So I think if we were go into the other namespaces, we'll take a look at this. We'll go into kubectl. Same thing, agent ignore, node lease, agent ignore, kube system, agent ignore, and default agent ignore. So again, this package adoption feature won't work against the default namespace or any of the kube namespaces. So just keep that in mind, or the Zarf namespace, which would make a whole lot of sense, but well, because we already have Zarf managing Zarf, but yeah. Let's go ahead and create this package, and we will adopt these resources. So we'll do a Zarf package create on the example /DOS games, create the package. Yes. So something to keep in mind when you're taking over something, when you're adopting something with Zarf, make sure you include the images along, with the other things that manifests. Now this is easy in this example. We have one image. If Postgres, it'd be a little bit harder with 3 or 4. When there's an operator, this gets much harder because the operator in code will then create other Kubernetes objects, and those will have images associated with them that will get affected by the mutating webhook. That will then, not be able to do. You'll get an image pullback off. Image pullback off, or you won't be able to find the image because of the mutating webhook that the Zarf agent provides. And I'll show you how that works in a second. But let's go ahead and deploy this with this adoption flag. So at Zarf package deploy with our local Zarf package we created, and then with the adopt flag. So this will deploy, well, it won't deploy anything. It'll keep everything there. It will adopt the existing resources. It will change the namespaces around. We'll take a look at that in a moment. And yes, go ahead and deploy. And let's go ahead and take a look at this now. So now if we do into K9s, and we go to this DOS games namespace here, we can see here it is now managed by Zarf. So that agent ignore flag is gone. This is now managed by Zarf. And now we can see nothing changed yet because I go into the namespace and I describe the game. We can still see here the image is the Docker Hub image essentially. But let's delete the pod. Let the replica set recreate the pod and see what happens. And now if we do a describe here, we can see here the image ID and image has changed. It's now the local image inside of the Docker registry that is being managed by Zarf. So this is now fully adopted. It'll work just like anything else that you, like, let's say, if you were to deploy this with just Zarf, Zarf ahead of time, Zarf package deploy, and I can do a Zarf connect here. And on my other, so let me go find my browser. I bet it's open on the browser. Or did I do the wrong thing? Zarf connect list. There we go. Oh, games. And yes, and over here we have games ready to go. And that's it. That's how resource adoption works. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. I'm Jason Van Brackle there. If this was helpful at all, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video. Bye now.